Alex Garland and Danny Boyle collaboration Sunshine, which is a very underrated film, made in the mid 2000s. It came out, it didn't do very well. I remember it not being really been advertised that well. It seemed like I was coming out and then it's gone. And it just felt like it was like, I didn't even see it in the cinema. I wanted to see it and it was just like gone pretty quick. It was like, well, you never had a chance to see it. It was just so quickly gone. At least where I was living, it was just like, wow, I really would have liked to have seen that film. And it did not happen. I've recently had a chance to watch the projector to see it in a bigger screen, so it's quite nice to see that. Because it's a film I've always liked. Even though it's got some problems, it's always been one of those interesting films. It's Alex Garland's going on to direct very kind of highbrow films. And this is one of the better Danny Boyle ones. Because he did one or two films with Alex Garland. He did 28 Days Later as well, which was much more generic and much more of a zombie film. And very, very, very influenced by George Romero films, but not as good. I mean, the first together when Boyle adapted The Beach, which was not a successful film, and Danny Boyle is really dependent on writers because he can be in a good film. If he's got a good script, he'll probably do a good film, but it's a lot of time for me he chooses really weak scripts. And it's like, why did you bother with this thing? It's not that good. It seems to be like somebody who likes to work a lot. And so sometimes you're going to get something good and sometimes you're going to get something really bad. I don't think he's that intellectual director. I think he just chooses stuff he likes and hopes the best. It's one of those things. And Alex Garland's a much more intellectual director. If you look at Annihilation, Ex Mechanica, all about AI and all that thing. You feel because he came from being a writer, and he likes messing around with ideas, and so not every film he does is astonishing, but they're always ambitious and always interesting. So I mean, Ex Mechanica, for example, I like the film, but I don't love it. I much prefer Annihilation. Annihilation I really, really liked. He also wrote Dread and produced it, and according to a lot of people, did a lot of directing on it too. And Dread's awesome. Dread's is wonderful. But no one quite knows who did what in that film. But that film came after this one, and this one is Sunshine is really well made. It does pretty much feel like an Alex Garland film, even though Danny Boyle directed it, because obviously Boyle liked the script and stuck to the script, So which means it has the fingerprints of Alex Garland well into this film. So the idea of it is that the sun is dying, the nuclear energy of the sun is dying away, and the solar system doesn't have much time left. So they bring the power together to try and restart the sun. There's been an Icarus, it's called Icarus 2 because there's been an Icarus sent and it disappeared years ago, and no one knows what happened, no one knows where it is. So they send it the second one. This is the last ditch attempt. If this one fails, we're dead, pretty much. So it's the last. There's not enough energy left on the planet. The planet's freezing. There's no way to send a third one and hope for the best. It's like we either succeed or we fail, and that's it. So as they get to the point of they're so close to the sun that they can't send stuff back, they find a signal that tells them that Icarus 1 is around Venus. And they kind of have to, do they move away and actually try and get there, because the payload's still on it. So if they get the payload, it means basically they can have two payloads to hit the sun and it'll increase the chances of success, because even though this is a theory they think it was going to work, you can never be sure, and two's better than one. So they decide to go do it, even though Chris Evans, who's the kind of engineer of the ship, says this is a bad idea. This is going to go wrong. We should do what we're supposed to do and just get out, and that's it. Try our best with this one. It turns out he's completely right. He's that character who's right about everything. through the film. He's like, if they just listened to him, there wouldn't be any problems. So, in trying to switch to move the ship a little bit, one of the engineers makes a mistake, and they don't adjust because the bomb's at the front of the ship, and it's also the heat shield to protect the ship from the rays of the sun. Because the rays of the sun are so dangerous for the ship. So they do not adjust all the shields right there, and it causes a massive problem within the ship. So it basically means that they're much less of a chance to actually succeed. And actually by trying to solve that problem, it ends up killing the captain. So now they're in a problem area where they've lost a lot of the oxygen, lost a lot of the food. And it's like, we really need that other ship now. They go to the other ship, and it turns out that there's still one person alive, but they don't know that yet. And as they go through the wreckage of the ship, they're trying to work out what went wrong. And what ultimately went wrong was the captain Pinback, a reference to Dark Star, went mad, killed all the people, and he thinks humanity must die. Humanity's time's up. And he thinks the sun dying is something from God telling him that it's a time up. So he's caught religion bad. And he's not going to stop until his prophecy in his own head becomes real. And he's become obsessed with the sun, and the sun's almost from God. The signs from God. So it's a movie about like belief and science and insanity and like existential threat to yourself through what your mind can put in your head. And this is a much more interesting part of the film. There's a lot of stuff about these characters all being obsessed with the sun because they're so close to it and it's so powerful. And the idea of it dwarfs them in the sense of what it does to the human mind. So the first third of the film, as you get used to the characters, you're seeing them being used to them in their surroundings, and they're all going slowly mad because it's such a difficult. They try to save humanity, but also just the psychological stress of being in space is much more difficult than imagined. And that's what's really interesting about the film, the existential threat of being in space. It's like, we can do all this stuff with technology, but can we actually survive in space mentally? And it's like, well, can we? And that's what's really strong about the film, that sense of how kind of small we are within space if we actually try and go beyond our borders. That's really worked. That works really well. What doesn't work as well is the second half where Pinback is on the ship and he's trying to kill them off one by one as if it's a Friday the 13th movie. I still like that stuff though, because it is the idea of he's almost like the wrath of God coming down on these people who are trying to change their fate. It works well, and because his whole body's been burnt, it's played by Mark Strong. You never see him in the flesh. You always see him as a blur, and it becomes almost like the hand of God trying to strike down at them, or the hand of fate, and they're trying to fight fate, even though at a certain point they know they're not going to survive. They know that nothing will survive this. They're just trying to get the bomb away to try and save the rest of the world. They personally will die. It just becomes a fight between these two forces. It's just that section is not as well written because it feels there's something missing. Like it jumped to the action too quickly. That you needed a few more scenes of him stating his case before the action started. It just feels like it's too much of a jump. It's a pacing problem. I mean, people wanted just to pure sci-fi, no horror, which it could have done. I mean, fine, but I think because Danny Boyle was a big fan of Alien, which he stated he's a big fan of Alien, he tried to do his Alien section at the end of the film, and he tends to go for action in the final third of a film, no matter even if it's something with a hybrid idea, he tends to go for genre at a certain point, as a director. And I think that was the downfall of this film, is his instinct to go to genre, rather than have the genre stuff come out of the characters and the situation. And even though the idea of Pinback going mad is a really strong one, it just needed more ideas in that section just to kind of propel it forward so you felt you were still part of the same film. you don't really get that, and it becomes this disjoint. It's like the last third of the film isn't as good as the first two thirds, but it's still really good. There's still lots of stuff. At the end, as they're going down into the sun and they're trying to set off the bombs that will just turn off, just blow up. So it's a suicide. It's a complete suicide mission, and it's psychedelic as because the gravity's all gone mad. They're flying down the side of this bomb as well, inside the bomb, and it's just very strange and weird and very trippy, and it's wonderful. Because you've got this kind of monster within that, a human monster trying to stop them within this psychedelic feeling event. So it's a really trippy section. It's wonderfully done. So there's lots of wonderful stuff like that, and it's like if they just managed to find that join between all these sections of the film in the last third, it'd have worked so much better. But who cares? It still works really well as a film. There's still wonderful stuff. The strong stuff's so good that the weaknesses of the genre bits at the end are a bit tacked on. It's only a slight disappointment. It's not really important because they go completely crazy again at the end. It's like, so it really comes together again. So it's ultimately it's like 10 minutes in the film that's a bit weak because it's a bit slashery. But even that's done really well, and it sets up situations where characters have to sacrifice themselves to get to the next point, and it really works. Again, I'm trying not to be too spoilery because I know people have not seen this film, but it is obviously spoilery. But I'm trying not to say who dies when or whatever. But I'm sure most people have seen this film by now. But I would definitely say if you've got a projector, watch the projector and see it because it needs a biggest screen as possible. It really does, especially the early section where you're seeing these people on the, on this ship and the isolation. Bizarrely, I have a feeling that Alien Covenant was very, very influenced by this film. Because it had much more a feel of this film when they just got back to the Alien series, where before he was just doing a sci-fi movie, this time he's trying to do an important, serious sci-fi movie, and it was influenced a little bit by this one, but they weren't as good as this one. But I hope you enjoyed this. Just look at Sunshine. Sunshine is terrific for 90% of its time. It's so strong that even if slight flaws aren't that important because there's so much good stuff in it that it doesn't matter. So hope you give it a shot. It's really worth your time. It's a very nice, flawed, underrated film. It really deserves much more attention. And then you can go watch Dread because that's also excellent but in a different way. Okay, well I'll see you later. Right, bye for now.